Hello, everybody. You are at Rates and Barrels. Welcome to the show. It is Friday, May 26th. I'm Al Melchior. I am here with Enos Saris, DVR out today, but he will be back next week. And we've got an action-packed show, So I know people are looking forward to getting on with their Memorial Day weekends. We will get you to that as soon as possible, but we got a lot of news and a lot of interesting stuff to get to. So let's start, with the big item from this week, Bobby Miller making
He
his
is a big
debut.
item.
Yeah,
That could be
I
his
think
nickname.
what's that?
That could be his nickname.
Yeah,
The big
not
item.
not the big unit, but the big item
Yeah.
making his debut against Atlanta.
6'5", 220.
But I want to, we talked about this a little bit offline before hitting record, something that was a little bit puzzling to me. So a great overall result. And of course, throwing 99, 100 against Atlanta, but not very many swings and misses, replicating a pattern that he had at AAA Oklahoma City this year. So I know you looked into it a little bit, but is that anything that we should be concerned about at all? Or is that just nitpicking?
There's an interesting thing going on where you look at his four seam change and slider whiff rates and they look fine. Now they don't look outstanding, which is a little surprising given the stuff rating on the pitches and just what it looks like when you're watching him. He's throwing 100. But he has a slightly above average whiff rates on his four seam, average-ish on the changeup, around average on the slider. He gets no whiffs on the curveball, and he gets no swings on the curveball. The swings, curveballs usually get fewer swings than other pitches, but he gets 22% swings so far on his curveball. But what I'm looking at, that's all competition level, so I think that has some spring in it. In any case, the average curveball still gets like 35% swings. So nobody's swinging at the curveball, and when they swing, they're not missing, and it's the pitch that's getting hit. And if you look over at Stuff Plus, it's his worst pitch. So, the curveball must have some function in his arsenal, that the reason he goes to it. But it is possible that he slims his repertoire down, has the two fastballs, the slider and the change, and becomes more occasional with the curveball. And if he does that, it may be good for him. I also think that there's generally a slight whiff of bad command around him.
Mm-hmm.
He did give up some hard hit balls. The location plus was not bad on it, but it's one start of that, and there is the fact that he did give up some hard hit balls, and that he's had some iffy-ish walk rates in the minors. So I think this is a high stuff, medium command kind of guy. I'm still all in on him.
All right. Is he? I mean, he's not available in too many places at this point, but maybe some 12 teamers, especially leagues that have weekly fab, where maybe he wasn't picked up last
Yeah, weekly
weekend.
fab. I mean, he just debuted this week, so a lot. I think mostly weekly fabs is where he's available, and
Yeah.
I don't know how many more, really exciting stuff candidates there are left in the minors. You know what I mean? And so as the supply runs out, there's the scarcity goes up, and I think he is worth a substantial bid.
Okay. Well, I put a number to that in the column. I feel like I need to do that every
What
week.
did
So
you
the
What did you
number I
put on
put
there?
to it for 15 team leagues was 18 to 20%. So
I think he's worth that.
yeah, even with our dwindling budgets. Well, there's a number of other developments
And
that
you
occurred in
mean
the past.
18 to 20% overall, right? Like not what you have left.
Correct. Yeah. Very
Some
good
people have like
yeah, because if you do
$200
what you have left,
left.
especially if you've got a budget like mine, it's not going to do the trick. Right. Total fab budget that you had at the beginning. Right. So I do want to get to some other developments from the past few days. We have an update on Eloy Jimenez. Of course, he's on the IL, had an appendectomy, but the update there is that within the last few days started a rehab assignment with AA Birmingham and going to play a couple more games. And then he'll get evaluated over the weekend. So I don't think the return for Jimenez is imminent, but is it time to start thinking about the domino effect here and maybe, or very specifically, what happens with Jake Berger when Jimenez returns?
Yeah, I mean, I like him and he hits the ball hard, but he does not have offer positional versatility. The best defensive team does not include Eloy in the outfield or Jake Berger in the outfield. I mean, I'm not saying anything crazy here, am I?
No, I don't think you are.
Yeah, so I do think it impacts him. Um, I don't think they really want to play Eloy in the outfield, but there's just a risk there with Gavin Sheets and Jake Berger that one of them just gets sent down.
And is it worth even speculating on that at this point, or you think we have enough time to just see how it plays out?
In terms of getting ahead of it and dropping Berger now or something.
Yeah, if somebody needs a roster spot, or maybe, I mean, Berger is still, he's been added a lot, but he's still out there. So I mean, is this a window maybe to get him still, or is it not worth it at this point?
Uh, I mean, I don't think it's worth picking up now with the good news from Eloy. No.
All right.
But if you've got him, I think I would treat him as a streamer bat in this situation.
Well, that's fair enough, and just something I think we should, watch over the next few days, see what that timetable is for Jimenez, because if it is a short timetable, then maybe we do have some roster decisions to make. So some other developments: Royce Lewis probably going to be back quite a bit before Jimenez. Of course, he tore his ACL roughly a year ago, the second time that he did that in 2 seasons. He is eligible to return from the 60-day IL this Monday. I've seen some reports that it's possible he could be back that soon. I think maybe we could at least expect he'd be back sometime in the coming week. So we've talked about Lewis before on the show, but it's always been like, well, maybe you pick him up now, but you've got some time. But I think time is kind of running out on Royce Lewis. So where should we think about adding him?
I think you should think about adding him in most places. I think he's going to take the regular third base job from Kyle Farmer. Um, I know Carlos Correa's hurt, so maybe Lewis is going to play some short and Farmer plays third. But when everybody's healthy, I expect it to mostly be Lewis and Correa on the left-hand side of that infield. The weird thing for me is I've seen this with some guys like Josh Jung. Sometimes you see an injury manifest in the swing and miss in a weird way that you didn't expect. You might expect an ACL injury to affect Lewis with stolen bases or something like that. But since he's come back this year, he's swinging and missing at a rate that I've never seen before. And I know it's 32 plate appearances, but the whiff rate is built on pitches, and so he's in 32 plate appearances. You'd expect him to have seen, 120 pitches.
Yep.
And he's whiffing at like an 18% rate, and his highest before that was 12.5. So there's something going on with the whiff rate there. To expect him to be fully healthy when he first comes back is a lot. So I think I might revise downward the projected batting average and revise upward the projected strikeout rate a little bit. Consider him likely to strike out 26% of the time at least, and hit more like 240. I also think it's a lot to expect him to steal like 10 more bags the rest of the way, coming off a second ACL. So, I would say like full season true talent, I'd expect something like 240, 15 and 5 from Royce Lewis. I think that feels a little tepid, but
Yeah. Well, but for a reason.
right. Yeah. I mean, like all the whiffs in the minor leagues, second ACL, it's a big deal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, what I would translate from that is I do think he's somebody that you should target in 15 teams this week, but I think going shallower than that, I think we can afford to wait and see what the results are early on.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, yeah, though I'm thinking of like in a couple places, I've got, oh my gosh, on the rundown, it's it's
Yeah, I
been,
noticed.
it's been copying down everything I've said.
If you
Stop
want a
it.
transcript of this show,
Okay, I need to turn this off. I'm going without the rundown. I hope it's not still doing it. Any case, sorry, what was I saying? What were we talking about?
Oh no, we were just talking about where to add Lewis, and
Oh
Eloy
yeah, I
did
mean, I'm
stop
thinking in my
writing
main,
everything we were
like
saying.
in my main, I've got Ryan McMahon, and I've been looking for like a third baseman that can play when McMahon's on the road. Benchish, benchish 15 team. Definitely worth a big-ish bid in an AL only if somebody forgot about him.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, no question about that. Well, just a quick hit here on situation in Arizona. Dominic Fletcher down, which I found a little
What?
bit surprising because, or maybe surprising not the right word, but maybe
You
unfortunate
just
because
heard
he
my
was,
surprise voice.
yeah, he was definitely unfortunate from a fantasy perspective because he was just on most added lists, but he's back down in AAA. Jake McCarthy back up. So do we
They're
do a
playing
hold with
musical
Fletcher, and
chairs.
should we expect better from McCarthy this time around?
What did he do in the minor leagues that was different? Jake McCarthy walked more and struck out less. I mean, he did go down and was 32% better than league average in AAA. So I don't know what they told him to do when he went down, but he did, hit a ball harder than he hit in the major leagues. He whiffed less and he walked more. I suppose, I think one thing that's missing from Fletcher's line and something that you kind of have to remember, when you think of the Fletcher brothers is, I'm not sure I believe in the sort of league average power that Fletcher was showing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they might look at projections that say that, Fletcher is going to be 10 plus percent more, the 10% less than league average. He's going to be like 87 WRC type player.
Yeah.
And I think Jake McCarthy, even with his flaws, is projected to be more like a league average type player. So I guess they're looking for some power infusion from McCarthy, and I think this makes McCarthy a good pickup. But you have to remember that they have Alec Thomas in the minor leagues. So what happens if Alec Thomas goes down and does the Jake McCarthy? And
Right.
Jake McCarthy struggles in the big leagues. Do they now bring up Alec Thomas? Is this like a carousel now, or? So I pledge some caution, but if you need stolen bases, Jake McCarthy is worth some money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of us went that route back in March. So hopefully those of us who drafted him held on to him because maybe there's more steals to come soon. Let's pivot to some pitchers and a couple of pitchers who made their season debuts. Kyle Hendricks for the Cubs. Not a great outing for his debut, but not terrible. Julio Teheran, at least on the surface, a really nice outing against the Giants. Did wind up taking the loss in that one, but anything there in Hendricks or Tehran in terms of fantasy interest?
No.
Moving on.
No, I mean, it's a tough park. I know he did well. But, it's funny when I looked at, and it's interesting to me that his fastballs, registered as above average by Stuff Plus. That's surprising to me. But I looked at one point at pitchers who pitched the most like, the pitchers that pitch the most like they used to, like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Julio Teheran is a throwback in that way. Like, for example, like the rest of the league has stopped throwing fastballs, and Julio Teheran is out here still throwing 60% fastballs. Even when he comes in at 89.5 miles an hour this year, he threw 66% fastballs. Like, there's nobody else in the big leagues doing that. And in terms of velocity, it's a throwback velocity. So maybe it'll work for a little bit because people are like, what is this? But I don't think it'll work for long. The projections are awful. The Stuff Plus, other than the fastball quirk, doesn't really speak to me. And the team situation is rough.
Yeah, and I'm not sure when Eric Lauer is coming back. I mean, they've got several rotation injuries. I think Lauer may be the next back, and then obviously either Tehran or Ray would have to go at that point, unless they went with the 6-man rotation. But just one last note on Tehran, I noted that he, you mentioned the fastball usage probably a good reason for that because slider clocked in at -29 on Stuff Plus. Is that a record in a bad way?
That I mean, it's so bad that it makes you think, well, what if there's something good about it? Like it is one of the lowest numbers I've ever seen. I need to look at it now. Why does it hate it so much? The slider is 83, so that's bad. And it does not have sort of power curve-ish drop. It has average drop for a slider. So it's kind of average across the board with no horizontal movement. So it's like an 83 mile an hour gyro slider. To compare to other gyro sliders, the good gyro sliders are at 89 to 91. So it's like a slow gyro slider. I could
All
see
right.
this being a
Well,
bad
not
pitch.
not what you want. Got the good results in spite of it. But yeah, we'll move on to a few other pitchers. I think you'll have more interest in at least one of these pitchers. Garrett Whitlock is expected to return to the Red Sox rotation on Saturday at Arizona. Paul Blackburn expected to return to the Athletics rotation sometime next week, possibly maybe getting his 2-start week. And the Yankees calling up Randy Vasquez to make his major league debut on Friday night against the Padres. However, I did see, I believe it was on MLB.com, that Vasquez just may be used as an opener. So I don't think there's much long-term interest there. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but anything here notable?
Well, to me, the fact that Randy Vasquez is needed is notable in that there is a guy, Will Warren, that I am more interested in AAA. And so if Randy Vasquez is already being called up and being used, that means Will Warren might be next. So it's that's not much praise for Vasquez, but it does mean that the coffers are getting a little bare in New York, and so Will Warren may be next. I'm not really that in on Vasquez.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, let's get to some hitting developments then. And there's one player here. I want to start with a couple of players that are in sort of similar situations, but one that I got a question about on Twitter to do a deep dive. So I guess we'll do our best here. Zach McKinstry getting very regular play with the Tigers, hitting leadoff, definitely in the fat side of a platoon. Pretty much the same situation for Mickey Moniak with the Angels. Do you have I understand that, Moniak is outfield only. McKinstry is multi-position eligible. I believe it's second, third outfielder. But a preference for one over the other.
What do you think the depth chart in Anaheim looks like when the Angels are fully healthy?
Well, I mean, I do question, just to even get to the simplest aspect of this, that maybe Taylor Ward comes back because in a more regular role, because I just worry about all the strikeouts for Moniak, and he's hitting with power
Yeah.
so far, but he's not hitting the ball hard. So I just think that the skills and the surface stats at some point are going to be more in sync, and Taylor Ward might get another shot to
I
right
think
the ship
so.
for
I
himself.
think that when everybody's healthy and the best lineup is Ward, Trout, Renfroe. And so that's what bothers me about Moniak plus the strikeouts. And then in Detroit, I think Nick Maton was slightly useful, but just proved to strike out too much. And so I wonder if he's kind of losing his grip on any sort of regular playing time. And if that's the case, then I think there's an opening there for McKinstry to maybe even become the everyday third baseman. You know what I mean? It's a bad team, so there's just more likely that Zach McKinstry can find his way to full-time play, I think.
Their situation is interesting though, because they're edging up on 500. They're in second place. It's a bad division, and McKinstry's got as good of I shouldn't say as good of a skill set. I mean, I don't think he's got as good of a skill set as Riley Green, for example, but he's got a good skill set. And
He
I
doesn't
think he
strike
should
out
be
too
in
much.
that
He
lineup
walks.
a
He
lot.
hits the ball a little bit, but power runs. Yeah, he's like kind of a Joey Wendell-esque, where it's just like everything's a little bit above average or average.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I didn't note who asked the Twitter question, but if you are watching or listening, you've got a comp there, so I think that helps us put some teeth into what to
Yeah, I
expect
mean,
from Zach
yeah, there
McKinstry.
might be some long-term guys in the organization that if they were really, really bad, they might be looking at over McKinstry because McKinstry's $28,
Hmm.
and so $28. So 28 years old, not $28, 28
Okay.
years old. So that didn't make any sense. And so they might have younger guys they like better. So, but I think that you're right. If they're trying to, I think that their coaches, their managers talked about like, hey, we need to like, you need to play well. We need to play win. Like we need like we're gonna put the best players on the field. Like they're trying to get out of the rebuild phase. So McKinstry's totally the type of player that kind of takes over from like a Flotsam and Jetsam crew. So I think he's actually, I don't know if he's interesting in 12 teamers because he's more like a sort of 15-15 guy, maybe full season. But everything else he is.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. So, yeah, interesting player who's still out there. Maybe some 15 teamers, maybe go a little shallower even on McKinstry. Now, player that you specified that you wanted to talk about, interesting player, Rougned Odor, had a very big game against the Nationals on Thursday, but maybe we've got Manny Machado coming back. Maybe we've got Hassan Kim maybe being out for a while after falling a ball off of his knee. How do you see this all shaking out for Odor?
Yeah, the funny thing about Odor, dude, is that like I tweeted that I don't understand him, and I feel like I could look at his line right now, right, and be like, oh, dude, his strikeout rate's one of the best it's ever been. His walk rate's one of the best it's ever been. Oh, look at it. He's got that barrel rate. He's always got that barrel rate. Oh, he's got an opportunity on this team. They need him. He just had this big hit. Like, but I have to zoom out for a second because I've played this game with Odor like in both directions so many times. I've fallen in and out of love with Rougned Odor. Like I don't know if there's any other player that I've done this more with. Where he goes 30 and 15, and I say, oh, but he had negative WAR. I'm out, right? And then the next year, he cuts his strikeout rate, and he goes 250 with 18 and 12, and I'm like, well, he cut his strikeout rate. I think I might be back in. And then I buy in, and I get the 30 homers, but a 205 average, and then I'm like, well, I'm out. I can't take that average. And then I like, well, the next year, it looks like I'm right. He was below replacement player for Texas in his last year. See, I was right, And then he has these little like ticklings of like he gets picked up by teams, and he gets played, and he does have power and he does have certain skills, but I just want to zoom out and be like, no, dude, you've played this game before. you know, you know how it ends. It ends with like a 200 average, some power, some speed, and tears.
So I'll flip this. You're right. That's always the end point, it seems, with
Yeah.
Odor. But I want to flip this around because you were talking about with the Angels situation when everybody's healthy, what happens to Moniak. So when everybody's healthy for the Padres,
Yeah.
is there a spot for Odor? Is this, I mean, is he just a 1 week play for next week, or is there something more
I
there?
think he's a decent 1 week player because Haseon Kim like did escaped like real I guess a broken knee at least
Mhm.
but it looked bad and he couldn't put weight on it, so I expect him to miss some time. And if he misses time, I don't think Brandon Dixon is very good, and Brandon Dixon's already sort of pressed into service because Manny Machado's hurt. So I think Odor is a full-time player next week.
All right. Well, there you go. Um, So, looking at just a few other players who are picking up some playing time, Jose Caballero. I'm not sure if he's taken over second base for the Mariners because they've just seen a whole bunch of lefties lately. So we've got an opportunity this weekend with three right-handed starters for the Pirates to see if he keeps playing. Assuming Caballero, I mean, if Caballero sits two of those games, I think there's not much reason to be interested. But if he starts two or three, where should we be looking to add him?
I think he's AL only. He just doesn't hit the ball hard. I know he's got some interesting slugging numbers, but if you kind of look closely, all the interesting slugging numbers come in the smaller sample sizes. So
Hmm.
if you just sort of scan the minor leagues, you're like, oh, 320 ISO, yeah, and 29 plate appearances at the complex. Every time he's crossed over 200 ISO, it's been a tiny sample in the minor leagues. So I think he's true talent, like a 120 ISO guy with like a 21% strikeout rate with some walks. Like it's just a little bit too Abraham Toro esque, where it's like, oh, the plate skills are good, but he just doesn't hit the ball hard. So I think that a player like that even struggles to hit for good batting average after a while. If you just think about the mechanics of like hitting a ball hard on the ground, like it's still better to hit the ball hard on the ground than it is to hit the ball softly on the ground. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
it's still useful to hit the ball hard, and I don't see him doing that very much. But the flip side is I'm worried about Colton Wong. One of the things that happens in Seattle is it kills hits, and it kills hits almost on a legendary level. Like I think when I look at the 3-year park factors at Statcast, they've got it killing hits more than any other park in baseball.
Wow.
Some other colder parks kill homers. Like San Francisco is still one of the worst places for offense because of it's cold and because of Triples Alley and stuff. But Mariners, T-Mobile kills hits, and that's kind of where Wong is struggling the most. You know, um, so, you've got a 32-year-old on a 1-year deal. Like, how much are you invested in him? You may take Caballero over him. So
Yeah,
I
it
would
looks like
watch
they.
this weekend closely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because he may already have that job, but we'll have a better sense of that this weekend.
Exactly. Yeah, he may already have that job. So yeah, exactly. Watch what happens against righties. Wong may be like honestly, I hate to say it about it, but like it could be close to DFA. Like this is the type of player that if you're looking for offense on a team that's trying to win now and you don't have a long-term commitment, like and somebody that you could like call up to play next to Caballero or with Caballero, like would be better than Wong. That could happen.
All right. And as just as a side note, that's why I love looking for the pitching streamers with the at SEA next to them because yeah, it's the bad park for hitters, very good for
Yeah,
pitchers. So
Seattle. I mean, Oakland is the king of streaming.
yeah, for a variety of reasons this
Yeah.
season. All right,
Oh
let's
my
just look at
God.
three players. Two definitely getting some time in the outfield. A third maybe going there, maybe first base, not sure. But Jonathan Davis and Michael Tachman both getting regular starts in center field. Davis for the Marlins, Tachman for the Cubs. I mean, Davis saying regulars, maybe a bit of a stretch because it's just been consecutive games so far, but great results both games. 3-hit games in Colorado for Davis. Tachman filling in for Cody Bellinger. Then Nolan Jones getting called up on Friday. Not sure what the Rockies' plans are for Jones or if he'll even play that much, but what's your level of interest in Davis, Tachman, and or Jones this weekend? That's not looking good.
um, I watched Talkman's sort of 175 plate appearances with the Giants last year, and he had the countenance and the results and the process of someone I thought was uh, like seeing his last time in the big leagues. Um, that is
And
going
yet,
to that's going to color whatever my analysis is now.
yeah.
But when I do look at him, I don't see any batted ball power. So um, looks like a fill-in defensive replacement type guy to me. One thing that's interesting about Jonathan Davis is he's always been a player that I would like if he could strike out less.
Mm-hmm.
A guy, he's like one of these guys that runs fast, has hit the ball hard at times, has a good idea at the plate, and yet just has this wicked large strikeout rate, despite not terrible whiff rates. Like his strikeout rates have been always been way more than his whiff rates. This year in AAA for Detroit, he had a 23% strikeout rate with a 258 ISO. Like he's kind of shown off all those things. He's 31 at this point. What do you like? Why is he up? What's the corresponding move? Like, why
I'm
is
not.
he in Miami?
Yeah, I'm not sure because when I look at their lineups from those couple of games, that just they've got so many players that are versatile. So they move Birdie around, they move Hampson around. So it's not necessarily that they're, I mean, obviously they're filling a hole with Jazz Chisholm out, but in terms of just the, why they brought him up now for these last two games, I don't know. I mean, my narrative, which might just be totally wrong, is that the Marlins love these speedy guys with a little bit of power upside, and maybe they just want to see if he's an upgrade over Hampson. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that's fair. But Garrett Hampson wasn't an everyday player.
No, but again, he and Birdie and maybe now Davis, they all kind of fill that same role, moving around the diamond, stealing
And
some bases,
Hampson has gotten
getting
more plate
semi-regular play. But
appearances in the last week than I expected.
yeah,
In fact, he's playing every day between center, short, second, and right. Um, Man, the Marlins are so weird. They
yeah,
are so deeply weird.
they really are.
What is going on? Like, if I ran the Marlins, it would be Brian De La Cruz, Avisail Garcia, Jorge Soler, and Jesus Sanchez. I'd probably
Well,
put
a
Jazz
couple of
Chisholm at
those guys are
short.
hurt, so that's
Yeah,
part of the
who's hurt?
issue
That's what
too.
I'm
Is how long
asking
is
about.
Hampson going to stay around? How long will Davis stay around?
Who's
But
hurt? Avisail
Garcia is still on the IL,
and
and
Sanchez.
Sanchez. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. Eh, I give a on all of them. What was the third one?
Oh, Nolan Jones,
That one
Colorado.
is actually interesting to me. I had picked up Brenton Doyle as a streamer in all leagues, but Brenton Doyle just got blown up. I think he got hit, and they say he's going to avoid the injured list. But this Jones call up must be related to that, don't you think?
I absolutely think so.
They released Jonathan Daza, so we don't have to worry about him anymore. But Grichuk, Bryant, Blackman, Profar, Jones.
Yeah, I just wonder if Jones will see some time at first because Crone is out indefinitely, and
Really?
they've not gotten anything from Michael Talia. So
He's beginning to, he's gonna take swings soon. I think there's I would treat Nolan Jones as a short term streamer that has a little asterisk next to him. I mean, he could play his way onto this roster, I think.
well, that's what I thought maybe back in March.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
I thought he would make the opening day roster, but Michael Togler's not playing well either. And so, CJ Crone can come back and they say, well, we prefer Jones now, right?
yeah. I mean, that's my thinking. My
So I think he's worth. I
uneducated
think he's
guess.
worth a little investment. It's nice to have. It's hard actually. I've noticed it's hard to have like two or three Rockies that you can't play all the time on your like on your roster. I think I have some places where I had like McMahon and Blackman, and then I picked up Doyle, and I was like, oh man, this is too much because in a perfect world, I would not play any of these guys on the
Yeah,
road,
yeah.
which means
That's
I'm all of a sudden platooning three spots, yeah. But if you don't have that many Rockies on your squad, like picking up Nolan Jones for a small number, like trying to sneak him in, I think he might be worth, 3 to 6%. Maybe even like 11 to 13% if you kind of need what he can bring to the table because he does have power. He hits the
yeah,
ball really hard, and he's been striking out less this year. So if he combines those two, there's a real opportunity for a breakout in Colorado.
yeah. And Colorado, that helps too. And it's a well-timed call up because we'll have the weekend to see how they use them.
Yeah, I
So
like that better.
yeah, definitely more helpful than a Sunday call up for
And
sure.
also the another terrible one is like the Tuesday call up where you would like to, but he's not in the system.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's move to our pitchers of note. segment of the show and do something I don't think we've done all year, which is actually focus on a couple of pitchers who are notable because they've not been good. But I got one request from someone to talk a bit about Alek Manoah, or no, actually, I'm sorry, it was actually the other pitcher, Graham Ashcraft. We are going to talk about Manoah, but also somebody had asked me a question about Ashcraft, asked if we could talk about him on the show, and this was before his last start, and I thought, he's only had one really bad start. I'm going to roll with him, but then his last start was bad too. So the bad numbers are kind of piling up for Ashcraft. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but with Manoah or Ashcraft, do you see any reason for optimism at all?
No, no, I do not. No, I do not. Not with Manoah. With Ashcraft, I would love to start him in Pittsburgh. I would love to start him in Kansas City. Like, I think there are going to be times this year where he's an underrated streamer, but he's a streamer for me until I see a third pitch. I think a slow curve would be really good. I think he needs to change velos. He's too. It's just all hard. And with two pitches, I've just watched enough starts with his where the fourth or fifth inning, he's been good for 3 or 4 innings, and then it just all blows up in the fourth or fifth when they're seeing his two pitches, and that's all he's got. So I think for him, there is still stuff there. There's still something to dream on long term, but he really needs another wrinkle, or otherwise he's just going to be a really good reliever.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw another pitcher in here who's not particularly notable this week for any reason. But when I answered this question that I got about Ashcraft, I made a comparison with Justin Steele because he's essentially a two pitch pitcher as well, who also relies on a lot of low soft contact. And do you have similar concerns for him? Because does he have an Ashcraft type of meltdown in his future that hasn't come yet, or is there something that maybe separates Steele out from Ashcraft that makes him a safer play?
Yeah, I guess it becomes a philosophical question of what it is to have a pitch, But yeah, I guess for Steele, it's 97% two pitches.
As I said, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, part of the issue is command. I would also say that the velo separation is different for him. At least he has sort of a 10-mile-an-hour velo separation between his two pitches in Steel. And then lastly, he just doesn't have the same home park.
That's a big difference. Yeah.
I think that's a big difference. But I think that I might have them closer than a lot of people. I'm not. I expect Steel to be closer to league average the rest of the way.
Okay. And just to circle back to Manoah for a second, is there, since I took you to say that there's not really any reason for optimism, do we just have to bench him everywhere, at least in mixed leagues at this point?
I mean, I would play him in Pittsburgh and at Kansas City. No, I mean, I would play him in Oakland. I would play him in nice parks. He still has an okay slider, but in terms of what I'd be watching to get back in, I think it would be the horizontal movement on the slider, which is down 2 inches off of his peak in 2021, and has not been moving in the right direction since then. I'd also be watching his weight, but that's going to be harder to change during the season. But if he came back in the spring, 20 pounds lighter with more sweep on his slider, I'd be back. I'd be back and interested in him, especially at a lower price. But this year, it just looks like one of those lost years. There's no number to point to say, I like Alek Manoah. I don't think.
Yeah, I keep rolling him out there because I just think this is Alek Manoah. There's got to be some turnaround at some point, but yeah, as we're getting to the third mark of the season, it's
5.5 ERA, 6.5 xERA, 6.5 FIP, 6 xFIP. Was Sierra's at 5.8, and K minus BB is 4%, and league average is like 14%.
Velo down. Not good.
Yeah, nothing. I can't point to anything.
All right. Well, let's look at three other pitchers here who I think are notable just because of the swing and miss they're getting, the strikeouts, and none of the three are really very widely rostered. Definitely not in 12 teamers. Tanner Houck, last three starts, a 17.2% swinging strike rate against teams that aren't particularly prolific whiffers. The Phillies, the Mariners, and the Angels. Alex Faedo, great start on Thursday. He's now in 21 and 2/3 innings, up to 22 strikeouts against just one walk. Does allow a lot of fly balls and a lot of home runs, so that muddies the picture there. And JP Sears has been really good and consistent. Last five starts, a 3.25 ERA, a 0.98 WHIP. Was pulled after 59 pitches against the Mariners on Thursday. That was weird. Doesn't seem to be any kind of health issue, but I'm not sure if that's something to worry about in the future, that he's not going to go deep.
They were actually just trying to win the game. Because they brought in a righty to face a righty.
Yeah, sixth inning though. I don't know.
It didn't work.
Narrator,
it didn't work.
Definitely didn't work, because that was Trevor May, right? Came in and gave up the home run.
Yes. Yeah. So you had Fido, Sears, and who's the third?
I'm sorry, and Houck.
I think I like Houck the best out of all of them. He certainly has a couple of the best pitches in that sinker and slider. Now, Houck's problem is lefties, and he's throwing a mess slider, but a mech cutter this year, but it's helped him against lefties. It's a lesson in something like Graham Ashcraft, like, to be a starting pitcher is not to optimize your Stuff Plus necessarily. Stuff Plus tells us more about a starting pitcher, but it does not, if your job as a pitcher is not to optimize for Stuff Plus. And in Tanner Houck's case, this cutter, gives him something he can do against lefties, so he doesn't have to throw the sinker and the slider, which from his arm slot have traditionally poor results against lefties. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a sidearm sinker slider guy against a righty against lefties. It's not good. And so the cutter has helped him there. Sears is actually my favorite overall, but he's just not going to get you wins. It's just absolutely not going to happen. So, and if they're going to limit how deep he goes in the games, he might not even get that many Ks. So he's like purely kind of 4 innings with good ERA and WHIP, and he hasn't always had the good ERA and WHIP. So it's like, I think right now I want Houck of these guys. But I would say all three of these guys are in that sort of 97 to 99 Stuff Plus, where any of them could be good pitchers if the arsenal all clicks. And so I would treat them as mostly schedule dependent. There's no way that I'm throwing any of these guys in a tough matchup.
All right. Well, and on that note, Houck this week or this coming week would line up to pitch at home against the Rays. So I would assume a sit situation.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, let's move on to streamers and 2-star pitchers. It's pretty much almost exclusively 2-starters. And I feel like this is probably the deepest group of 2-star streaming candidates that we've seen all season. It's just really lined up, So
in my TGFBI, I think I'm playing 6 2-star pitchers this week or something. I don't know what is going on with the schedule. It's so strange.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I looked at, it wasn't TGFBI, but another league of mine where I saw that was like just a lot of pitchers with 2 stars. I'm like, this is going to be great this week. And then realizing it's a head-to-head league. So realizing like, my opponent's probably got even more. So something to keep in mind as you're looking at your roster right now and thinking maybe you've got it made. But I'm just going to toss out, I'm going to group it together because there's just so many. So I'll start with 3 that I think are definitely kind of head and shoulders above the rest, but may be available in 12 teamers, and a 4th. I'll explain why. So Logan Allen at Baltimore, at Minnesota, Michael Kopech versus the Angels at home, and then at home against the Tigers, Brian Bayo at home against the Reds and Rays. And then let's throw Cal Quantrill in there because he's got the same matchups, obviously, as Logan Allen. So any preference, ranking,
first
concern of those 4?
I want the first 2.
Oh, so you want Quantrill, or not Quantrill? You want
Kopech and okay. Allen.
So what's the deal with Kopech? Because he's had 2 brilliant starts.
There's a little bit of just those are bad matchups. It was Cleveland and
Yeah.
Royals, good matchups for the pitcher. And a little bit of an adjustment. He's changed his release point on his fastball, or just he's changed his release point in general, and that's allowed him to get a little bit more wiggle on some of his secondary pitches while retaining the same amount of ride. So there's a little bit of an adjustment there. And then lastly, I just like him because Stuff Plus has liked him all along, and it's been more about like can he put a stretch of okay command together, and that's what I think we're seeing with him. So I am not scared. I'm a little bit scared of one of those. I forget. I think it's Angels or something.
Yeah, I think so. I'll double check, but
The Angels could beat him up a little bit,
yes,
but
Angel.
I like the second start, and I just like the fact that you get two bites of the apple with him, and he's the highest stuff guy on that list. So yeah, I'm going to gravitate towards that. Logan Allen, I think, is not a streamer and should be owned. I, in fact, like him a little better than Tanner Bybee. I'm alone on that island, but Logan Allen is a pickup anywhere that you see him available, and it doesn't even matter what his schedule is. So I think he's
Yeah.
worth, like, if you're considering, like, if he's there as a streamer, I think he's worth a bigger number than you would put on streamers. So I tend to try to keep my streamers around sort of 10 out of 1,000, sort of 10% at most, 10 to 13, like in there, because you have to be able to buy them every week. So, I kind of want to almost get it under 10%, like you have
Yeah.
more than 10 weeks in the year. But Logan Allen would be worth, I think, into that sort of 10, 15, 16, even 20 plus percent. 20 plus? No, not percent, $20. So now we're talking 2, 3%.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's one of the strange things to me, sort of like how slow Jake Berger has been to get rostered. The fact that Logan Allen is still widely out there in 12-team leagues. I'm not sure why, but I'm sure with the 2-start week,
I should
that's
clarify. I messed up. I'm an FBC guy, so it's 1,000, right? So I
yes.
try to
Okay.
keep my streamers around 10 to 13 to $16, which is actually 1 to 2%.
Gotcha. Okay. Which
Sometimes
totally
I'll
makes
go
sense.
into the low 20, so low 2%. I would say Allen would be probably worth as much as 5 to 10%. I mean, he's a
Yeah,
really good
I
pitcher.
totally agree. And if it was a 2-start week, I think you could get away with less. But yeah, I think maybe finally this week people are gonna start adding him where he should be added. So let's go to sort of the mid range here. JP France versus Minnesota versus the Angels at home. Kyle Freeland on the road. At Arizona, at Kansas City. So at least one really good matchup and venue there. Ranger Suarez, I want to stop on him for a second. He's got road starts, Mets, and Nationals. He's got a 9.82 ERA, probably just looks like an absolute no to most people, but his Sierra is 3.86, his xFIP is 3.15, and if you break it down, and you look at kind of the next level peripherals for Suarez, he looks like the same guy he's ever always been, but he's got an ERA around, almost 10. So I think he, in maybe not 12 teamers, but anything a little deeper, I think you could slide him in with a 1 to 2% bid and could really work out.
Yeah, except that like his backstory or his sample before, is kind of a collection of smaller sample numbers that kind of look a little lucky at times. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think he's kind of a true talent for low fours ERA, high whip guy because he does let the ball in play and is kind of a ground ball guy.
Yeah.
So like a 4.2 ERA, a 1.35 whip, 7.5 strikeouts per nine. Um, it's a streamer for me, I think. And where are his matchups this week?
Oh, on the road, which is nice.
Yeah.
Mets and Nationals. Although
Well,
Nationals is a tough
Nationals is a
part.
little bit tough.
Yeah.
It is a tough park, but at least it's not a great offense he's facing. So
Right.
I like him. I like him and France out of that group.
Okay.
France thought that he was tipping pitches in his bad start, and he led the minor leagues in strikeouts at some point. France did, and I just see a totally like an arsenal that completely works for me. Sometimes the command goes, maybe he was tipping pitches, but he really righted ship in that next start against Milwaukee. Stuff Plus says he has an above average fastball, above average slider, above average curveball, and average change and cutter. So it's a good mix. It's a wide mix. Locations don't say that he's in trouble yet. So Francis actually would be a pickup for me without the two start. And so again, I
Wow.
think worth a little bit extra, a few extra dollars to reflect the fact that you might keep him on your roster next week as well.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Freeland. He's got that second start at Kansas City. I mean, given the quality of this pool, and another week, maybe Freeland would be somebody I would at least would think of taking a chance on, but I think there's just too much depth here.
He's a
Matthew
guy
Boyd,
you
same.
put $1 on at the very bottom of your list in case
Yeah.
you underbid everybody and you really need some starts.
Yeah. I think that's, yeah, that's a great approach. Matthew Boyd versus Texas at the White Sox. I mean, at the White Sox is right now a good matchup, but I guess I don't know. Who do you prefer? I think I would actually take Freeland over Boyd this week.
What are the Boyd matchups?
Rangers at home, White Sox on the road.
It can get dicey and White Sox on the road, especially with a guy who's giving up a lot of homers.
Yeah, exactly. And then another pitcher
I think I'd
here,
take
Rich
Boyd
Hill.
by a hair, but that's
So I'm
like
gonna
$2 on
refer.
Boyd and $1 on.
Now, Rich Hill was a leaderboard surprise for me because I was looking at CSW for the month of May yesterday,
Yeah.
and actually did a little like Twitter not contest, but Twitter question
He's
for people
doing
to
that kind of
respond to.
Adam Wainwright thing. He's still got the one elite pitch.
Yeah, no, he really does. And just to relate it back to this leaderboard scan that I did, so it's changed since yesterday because Braxton Garrett pitched last night, but before that game, he was third in the majors for the month in CSW. And at the top of that leaderboard, you've got some widely rostered pitchers with good results, and I wanted to point that out. Rich Hill is ninth for the month in CSW, and
Wow.
I'm not shocked when Hill does great, but you figure he's finessing it somehow. But I mean,
He
he's
is. I
missing
mean, he's
bats.
dropping down to different slots and he's doing some funky stuff. He's doing everything he can to stay in the league.
Yeah,
And he is risky and I can't imagine that I would just play him every week. He's definitely a matchups guy. So what are the matchups this week for him?
the matchups for Rich Hill are at San Francisco, at home against the Cardinals. Now, at San Francisco,
Woo!
Giants are one of the worst home offensive teams, but that Cardinals one does
And the
scare me.
Cardinals was tough, but he's in Pittsburgh, which suppresses home runs at least.
Mm,
So I am putting him above Freeland and Boyd.
I like it. I like it.
I think a
Excellent.
step behind. I do stream, but when I do, I kind of have an eye on could I keep this guy? So Hill for me is a definite streamer, and so he sits behind France, who I might keep after the week is up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my order for things.
All right. Well, I'm going to add one more two-start streamer. Again, it's a deep pool, so I think we're still looking at very deep leagues here. But Ryan Weathers, he has good matchups at Miami, home against the Cubs. Any interest in any mixed leagues there?
Like maybe I push Boyd up and go $3 Boyd, $2 Weathers, $1 Freeland.
Yeah.
I think I go $3 Boyd, $2 Freeland, $1 Weathers.
All right. We're setting your cues for you. So.
You're right, doing the work.
And I want to point out something here, before we wrap up with our streamable pitchers. These are all the two-star pitchers so far that we've been talking about. Not all of them. We've actually missed out some, but those are at least the ones I think are worth talking about. But there is some one-start streaming possibilities. The Guardians are now the worst. And now I wish I had written this down. No, I did write it down. Okay. They are the worst team in the majors in WOBA for the whole season now. They've gone past the A's towards the bottom. So the Orioles have two starters going against Cleveland, Kyle Gibson, Grayson Rodriguez. And then I just mentioned the thing about the Giants not hitting well at home, which is a longstanding issue there with that park. And then you got Kyle Bradish and Dean Kramer at San Francisco. You've got Tyler Wells two-step with both of them. So that's obviously pick him up if you can, if he's available anywhere. But Gibson, Rodriguez, Bradish, Kramer, anybody you like with one start there?
I think with Bradish, if you're gonna pick up a one start streamer, then you really want to pick up somebody you might keep. So of
Yeah.
those names, Bradish is the name that I might keep on my roster the most.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the one of that 4 that I did include in the column this week. So, yeah, I saw it the
And I
same
think I
way.
might have Wells above France. The matchups are slightly better for Wells than France.
Yeah. He's not that available, but again, if he is available, definitely good to pick up Wells. So,
Yeah, I'm so mad about Wells, dude. Like, I do have a couple. I do have a couple spots where I own him, but I was so early on him, and then he just I don't know what happened, man. I should have more shares of him. I was the early guy on Wells. Like, why
I
don't I
was
have
too,
him
but
everywhere? Like, I look
we're
down
not
and
in
I'm
many
like, yeah,
leagues
I've got like
together. So,
2 or 3 shares of Tyler Wells. I feel like I should have all of the shares of Tyler Wells.
I know it bums me out when I see somebody else that has them, but
It
it's
doesn't
good
make
to
any
share,
sense
I
to me.
guess.
Yeah. To share.
All right. Well, on that note, as we already got a nice note here, let's talk about the closer corner. I don't think there's much to talk about here. Yanier Cano got his 4th save of the season against the Yankees on Thursday, but Felix Bautista pitched on both Tuesday and Wednesday, so I think nothing to see there. Giovanni Gallegos got his 5th save at Cincinnati. Maybe Helsley was resting. I'm not so sure about that one. And then you got the Arizona situation that seems to be
Helsley is not being used really on back to back.
okay.
So
Well,
Gallegos is going to end up with 10, 15 saves on the year. He's a viable AL only, he's a viable pickup in any league because he's going to have pretty good ratios and he's going to give you 10 saves. And, you know, it's just that's how they're doing things.
all right. Well, there you go.
I would say one name is Garrett Acton. I think he walked in the winning run in a game recently, but that just proves that they're willing to use him in high leverage. And so if there ever is a save in Oakland, the next one might go to Garrett Acton.
All right. So name to tuck away. And am I remembering this right? That your guy Jeremiah Estrada is up now?
He's up, and that is exciting because Mark Leiter has terrible stuff numbers. And if you just look at his pitches, like just the movements and velos, I don't think that's a closer, dude. He throws 91 and a half. There are not many closers that throw 92,
Yeah.
so I don't think that's gonna last long. Adbert Alzolay though is also in that mix, so Alzolay might get the first shot, and then I have no idea what is happening in Arizona, but I have to think that Kevin Ginkel might get the next shot just because he's been the steadiest and he has the best stuff. He's cleared up the tipping problem he had early in the season, and they keep trying different guys. They tried a guy. I wasn't even on my radar to try and close out a game recently, and he just predictably kind of gave it up. Jose Rivas or something.
Yeah.
So they've still got Carlos Vargas in the minors. They've got 2 guys in the minors with big stuff and no command. Those guys could come up and be the closer. I don't think McGough is the closer because he just doesn't have the stuff. He's been an
Yeah.
okay setup guy for them. So if you're prospecting for saves, Ginkel is a guy that I would put on your thread, your list.
All right. Well, here I was selling the short this segment, saying there was nothing, and you gave us 3 or 4 names to tuck away. So that's good, good stuff there. So, all right. Well, before we sign off here for the weekend, just a reminder that you can subscribe to The Athletic for just $2 a month for your first year. Just go to theathletic.com/rates and barrels and check out that great deal. You can find Eno's work there, my weekly column on the waiver wire, and all kinds of great stuff there for fantasy and for everything else. So again, that's theathletic.com/rates and barrels. So, thank you so much. And hope everybody has a great long weekend. So the show will be back next week. DVR will be back. But until then, everybody take care and have a good one.
Thanks for listening.